How's everybody doing? Yes, thank you, Brian. That's good. That's good. Okay, so we are about to kick off our mini breakout series. So after this session is done, there's just going to be a really quick 15-minute break turnover before the next 30-minute breakout. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing my friend and very close CultureCon collaborator and partner, Heather Haas from ADVISA. Heather is the owner and CEO of ADVISA, a national leadership and culture consultancy based in Indianapolis, Indiana. ADVISA provides strategic consulting, customized leadership development, as well as assessments and technology platforms, all aimed at driving measurable change at the individual, team, and organizational levels. Heather speaks nationally about the important role leaders play in creating magnetic work environments where the best and brightest people want to work. Heather is married and has 3 teenage children. She loves the mountains, singing, songwriter. She's a singer and songwriter of music, curling up with a book and being active outdoors. Her family and her faith are her greatest sources of strength and joy. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Heather to the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Of course. Yeah. All right. We're on the home stretch here of CultureCon. So, you know, being the speaker after lunch, I feel like I need to get out my tap shoes. But I actually think this will be a really action-packed mini session, but you're going to get a lot of great takeaways. Before I kick off, because this is such a relational bunch, if you don't already know everyone in the room, if you wouldn't mind, just lean over, introduce yourself to a table mate, and share with them when you looked at all the sessions for this half-hour chunk of time, why did you choose this one? So I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to get settled, introduce, and share why you're here. Okay, hopefully you have a new connection, you like bumped your phone to the badge and all that good stuff. And I'm really glad that you did choose this session because culture is near and dear to what we do at ADVISA. And I'm gonna get us started with a metaphor to get us thinking here. So take a look at that. Call it out. What is that? Anybody know what that is? Petri dish. Yeah, and someone even got really specific, like, you know, that's bacteria growing in there. Yes, this is a Petri dish. This may take you back to like middle school or high school science class, you know, like with your lab partner looking through a microscope. But I flashed this up here at the beginning of this session because it's a Petri dish with something growing in it is actually a really great reframe of culture. And of course, you know, when you have strep throat and you go to the Minute Clinic, what they do is they swab your throat, they do a culture of the bacteria so that the healthcare provider knows what medication to prescribe. But what I want to kind of focus you in on even a little more is in order for stuff to grow in the Petri dish, there's that clear, jelly-like, gelatinous substance called agar right in there. And it's got the nutrients in it that will cause bacteria to proliferate and grow and colonize. And so when you think about your work environment, and when you think about what is proliferating and growing in your organization, it's a good way to think about culture. Because as you know, things do spread. The good stuff spreads, the bad stuff spreads. You have a culture, one way or another. You're either intentionally understanding it and influencing it, or you're just letting it grow and colonize however it's going to grow and colonize. So I want you to keep this in mind because we're all in business to achieve some kind of result or outcome. And most organizations even have a strategy. We have a game plan for how we're going to get there. And if you can imagine that what lies between your strategy and the results that you're able to achieve at the end of the year, whether it's revenue, profit margin, customer penetration, whatever those things are, what lies in the middle is this culture. It's what we're growing and what nutrients leaders may or may not be putting into the mix to grow the right things that will either fuel our ability to execute that strategy and achieve those results, or create friction. So that's really what we're going to dive into here. Is I'm going to hit on these three things. I'm going to start with challenging you to think about culture in a new way. And hopefully I already did that a little bit, giving you that visual image. We're also going to talk about a really simple, memorable framework for 5 drivers that can help you change or influence your culture to grow different things. And then finally, we're going to end our time with getting real practical and tactical. You're going to have a chance to take a very short culture survey. You're going to get immediate feedback, and you're going to have a chance to just share that a bit with the people that you just met at your table. And then I'll close us out, and you'll be off to that 15-minute break. So there's also a definition up here, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of definitions at this conference so far. Every session, every speaker almost has their own twist on how do you define culture. But culture is behavior at scale. That's one that we really like, because if you're going to influence culture, if you're going to get intentional about growing the right things, behavior is really the tip of the spear. We can define desired behaviors, we can coach to those behaviors, we can hire for those mindsets and behaviors. We can also hold people accountable to certain mindsets and behaviors if we know which ones will in fact be in alignment with the results that we want to achieve. So again, there are outcomes, and instead of a petri dish, let's think about now the people, the actual human beings that you work with who are expected to behave in certain ways to get things accomplished. And that's where the title of this session comes from. We're all familiar, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's a very famous quote because typically it's been true. Culture has been this very amorphous, it's hard to influence. What is it even? How do we know what to do with it? But the reality is, and part of what we're all here learning about, there's this whole emerging discipline around we actually can start to quantify and measure it. And we actually can influence it in very intentional ways, especially when leaders are really clear and equipped to say and do the things that will create and grow the right things. So the alignment of culture with our business aims, that's what makes the Drucker quote not have to be true, right? Culture doesn't eat strategy for breakfast when the mindsets and behaviors of our people are fueling the exact types of outcomes that are important, rather than getting in the way and creating friction. That's what we want. We want culture to be fuel. We want your culture to be in service of what the business is there to achieve. So how do you know? How do you know if your culture is working for you or against you? This is a framework that we use in our culture consulting. We use this with executive teams when they engage to work with us because they want to make some kind of organizational shift. We first have to teach them this. And essentially, your culture can nest into one of those 4 quadrants, or maybe a couple. It's not an exact science, that's not the point. The point is, some of you are working in environments right now that are what we would categorize as very clan-like, very relational, very much about teamwork and collaboration. And what we're doing in that kind of culture, it's very development focused. We're driving commitment, not compliance. So you can start to imagine, what does it feel like to work at that company? Or some of you might be looking at the top right quadrant, adhocracy. That's kind of a crazy word, but the focus there is innovation. and entrepreneurship and hard charging and growth. And what is happening in that kind of culture is the mindsets and behaviors are all about, let's fail fast, let's experiment, let's just change stuff and see what happens. And if that doesn't work, we'll just change it again. And some of you might be like, oh, yes, I'm in that culture and I'm exhausted. And then if you look at the bottom right, that's this market-driven sort of culture where it's about winning. It's about outmaneuvering the competition. It's all about results, productivity, profit margin, results, the discipline to be the leader in the market. And then the hierarchy. That's more procedural. We've got ways that we do things. We have structure. There's policies. And that culture is really about maintaining control and efficiency through processes. None of these are better or worse than the other until you start to think about how it overlays with your business strategy. That alignment is where the magic happens for those of you that are in the business of leading culture or influencing culture. Because you have the opportunity to help your executive team see that, hey, we have a work environment here where we're not growing the right things in order to achieve the important stuff that the board cares about or that you, Ms. CEO, care about. So now you get this idea of alignment. Now you're starting to kind of, okay, so if we get these things to match up, we can really start to reduce the time it takes to get where we're trying to go, and we can do it more profitably. Because culture can really be a distinct competitive advantage if you get it right. So how do we get it right? What do we do to get the people's mindsets and behaviors aligned in the right way? That's exactly what we're going to talk about. So I mentioned at the top that I was going to give you a framework, right? I was going to challenge your thinking about culture. Hopefully your wheels are turning. And now I'm going to say, okay, what do you do about it? Here are 5 drivers for creating what we call cultural competitive advantage. And I know that is a mouthful, so I'm going to hover on that for 1 second. What we mean by cultural competitive advantage is it's the performance edge that an organization can achieve when their culture is in service of or aligned with their business goals. That's like a secret sauce kind of thing. It's not easily copied. So for organizations that are serious and that understand the value of this, it's pretty cool to get all the arrows firing in the same direction. I said it's pretty cool and it's powerful, but it's not exactly like easy and it's not quick. So this framework, which we call ATLAS, if you looked at my background, I used to be a teacher. So like acronyms are kind of an easy way for people to remember complex things. A framework helps people problem solve and communicate about complex things. So ATLAS, A-T-L-A-S, is a way for you to remember there are 5 critical nutrients that you got to have in your Petri dish in order to start to shift your culture in the direction of your business aims. The first is activation from above. The executive team, the senior leadership at your organization, has to own and relentlessly pursue the creation, the investment in creating a healthy and intentional work environment. You all feel this in your bones. If your CEO is not on board, if the executive team sort of delegates off culture to someone else, and they don't have time to sit in the room, and they don't have time to look at the data, and they don't want to be bothered with it, the rest of the interventions that you may bring to the table or try to do, noble as they might be, they will inevitably hit a wall where we don't have time for it. People can't be off the line to go to the training. We don't have the money for it. You know how that tends to go. So the buy-in at the top is everything. CEOs have to get around the table to have this conversation and keep tabs, time, attention, budget, on how cultural initiatives are rolling forward. The second driver is trust and shared purpose. And this is about mission, vision, values, what I call like the important things. And when I was at CultureCon in Madison just a few months ago, I spoke there as well. There was a really phenomenal speaker, and I wish I could remember her name, but she shared a metaphor that stuck with me. She said, culture has to have a spine. Culture has to hook into something. It can't just like float around, you know, separate and detached from the important things happening in the business. And that is what really connects with this trust and shared purpose driver. The culture of the organization needs to be in service of the mission, the vision, and in particular, the values. Core values, especially when translated into specific behaviors that can be universally understood, coached, recruited for, etc. When values are translated to that level, now we have some cultural artifacts, things we can point to, like, okay, people are in fact behaving in the way that we need, or they need some coaching, or maybe they're not the right fit. But mission, vision, values, having those, activating those, gives people what they need to trust that leadership has a game plan. Leadership is taking us somewhere. I understand where we're going. I understand why we're going there. And I understand our corporate character along the way. Very important. Once you have CEO, executive teams bought in, we have trust and shared purpose, we talk about these things, people know these things. The next piece of culture effectiveness is leader effectiveness. Culture and leadership are two sides of the same coin. Your leaders cast a shadow over the organization. What they celebrate, what they tolerate, their mindsets and behaviors do shape, to a great extent, the mindsets and behaviors of your employees. So what that means is leaders need to know, what am I supposed to say and do around here to activate these values and create this culture that's going to fuel our growth. If you were to go back and ask your leaders, hey, do you know like what you're supposed to say and do specifically? Like, what are the leader capabilities that are important to you being a people leader? My guess is most of them would say, I don't know. I know what my day job is. I really don't know specifically what I am supposed to be doing to carry the intentional culture. So defining what should leaders say and do is super important, and then leaders deserve the opportunity to learn how to do those things. So customized leadership development goes into leader effectiveness. You can't just define it and say, we need you to be like this, and then be like, okay, good luck. I mean, coming out of COVID, leaders, the whole game has changed, and tragically, very few leaders have been given any meaningful development and tools, especially bespoke development that really gets to the ethos of the organization and what you're trying to grow at your company. They've not received that, and it's a huge driver of culture change. Next is actionable people data. One of the things that we do at ADVISA is assessments. You heard Nick mention that at the top. Predictive index, emotional intelligence. We have a proprietary assessment called the Leadership and Culture Assessment. Engagement. All of that people data about people's inherent motivations, their drives, their needs, their employee experience, that should not live in a software platform that nobody gets into, and it shouldn't live in a file folder in someone's drawer in their desk. Your managers need to know, how am I wired? How is she wired? So that we can communicate really well. And what's the employee sentiment over in the Nashville plant compared to the Indianapolis plant? That information should be alive and accessible because we would never run a company without financial data. We look at that stuff all the time. We're drowning in data. But often, not enough of the people data, which is what leaders need to know. Am I connecting? Is it working? And then finally, the S is for systems. There's another quote you've probably heard. This comes out of the total quality movement. Deming said, "A bad system beats a good person every time." What that means is you can do all four of these things brilliantly. But if you have systems, software, workflows, policies, norms, procedures, the way stuff gets done and decided, if those things are at odds with whatever you have declared in your core values or for your cultural norms, you have a problem. I mean, if you say you're family first, but you don't give anybody, meaningful time off when they bring a child into their lives, now we have an issue. And you probably have a whole host of exactly those kinds. So you have to have the courage when you discover and you realize, I think we have a system that is creating competing priorities for employees and leaders to really live out and live into our corporate character and our culture. Okay, that's a lot, right? That's a lot of information. And I know that, but what it is, ATLAS, it's a framework that's memorable, that can help you understand, there's 5 different important pieces of this culture puzzle, and if I'm gonna make change, I've got to know where to start. It's kind of overwhelming, right, to eat that elephant all in one bite. So remember, culture doesn't have to eat strategy for breakfast. We can get clearer about how to make change, where to start, and that's what we're gonna do. So I've challenged your thinking about culture. I shared the Atlas framework, and now you get to take a short survey that is going to give you immediate information about how you perceive your work culture right now. So I'm going to invite you, I'm going to be quiet finally, I'm going to invite you to hit that QR code, put your info in, take the survey, and when you enter your email, that's when you'll get your immediate results. And I want to rest assured, even if you never want to talk to me or anyone in my company ever, you are going to have an extremely valuable artifact coming out of this survey, because regardless of where your scores come out, you're going to get actionable things you can take and do tomorrow. Quick tips for making change. So please do it. I'm going to give us about 5 minutes, then I'm going to bring us back together, and you'll have a chance to share your results. Quick show of hands. Is this helpful? Quick hit, getting the fast feedback. Excellent, because one of the things I think is so powerful about getting this fast feedback, this is a quick hit. I mean, we have a much longer leadership and culture assessment that front ends the consulting work that we do. But this short survey, which if you want to share it, it's on our website. Anybody can take it. What I love about it, it enables you to elevate the conversation about culture. You can share this with someone. You can sit down, and now you have a framework, a way to talk about how we might make change. Where might we start? Where can we focus? So I really hope this has been useful. I know it's fast and furious. These mini sessions are intense, but please reach out. My email is up there if I can ever be helpful to you. We like to say at ADVISA that culture starts here. And in fact, we have a podcast by that name. We have a podcast that runs right under the CultureCon podcast. So if you're ever looking for a deep dive, I'm basically teaching a whole course on those 5 drivers, 1 episode at a time. It's free. You can check it out. But thank you all so very much. Enjoy the rest of your day at CultureCon. Thank you.